today I'm going to be showing y'all how you can use pattern blocks to teach math lessons. So pattern blocks come in a variety of shapes and colors. So as you can see, we have hexagons, squares, trapezoids, smaller triangles, parallelograms, and they also come, like I said, in different colors. So we have yellow, red, blue, purple, we even have brown. Pattern blocks can be used to help students learn about different shapes. So if you were teaching little ones different shapes, you could use pattern blocks and point out the different sides. And they can also, these are nice because they're hands-on and they can hold them, look at them, turn them around. You can also use pattern blocks to teach about different patterns, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and also symmetry, which I'm also going to show you an example of later on. So I picked 3 different standards and 3 different grades that I want to show y'all how you could use pattern blocks. The first standard that I'm going to be covering is a kindergarten standard, and that standard is create, extend, and describe repeating patterns with numbers and shapes and explain the rationale for the pattern. So for this activity, I would use the pattern blocks to create patterns by using different shapes and different colors. So an example of this, I would do maybe 1 orange square, 1 yellow hexagon, 1 red trapezoid. I would repeat the pattern by doing 1 orange square, 1 yellow hexagon, and I would ask the students what they think the next shape would be and what the color would be. So for this example right here, the students would tell you that the next shape and next color would be a red trapezoid. So that shows them that they're picking up on the patterns and they're able to complete the pattern. I think this activity would be great if you had the students work in groups to create their own patterns and have each other tell them which shape or color would come next in the pattern. You could differentiate this by if students are struggling with their shapes. So for example, they don't really know the difference between a hexagon and a trapezoid. You can still use the shapes, but they could just be doing the colors. So a student may do 1 orange shape, 1 yellow shape, 1 blue shape, 1 orange shape. What would come next? They would say a yellow shape. This just helps them start picking up on patterns and repetition. The next standard that I want to cover is a first grade standard, and that standard is to compose 2-dimensional shapes, so rectangles, squares, triangles, half circles, and quarter circles, and 3-dimensional figures such as cubes, rectangular prisms, cones, and cylinders to create a shape formed of 2 or more common shapes and compose new shapes from the composite shape. So in this activity, you would explain that the shapes are common shapes being a hexagon, a square, and a trapezoid. So those are our common shapes in our pattern blocks. And then you would go on to explain that if you make a shape with 2 or more common shapes, that they are called composites. So for example, if you put 2 trapezoids together, that would make a hexagon. So you're using 2 common shapes to create a composite shape. So students would use the pattern blocks to create composite shapes, and I would have students work in groups to create their own, so they can come up with a variety of different composite shapes in this activity. The last standard that I want to cover is a 2nd grade standard, and that standard is identify at least 1 line of symmetry in everyday objects to describe each object as a whole. So pattern blocks are a great way to explain and teach students about lines of symmetry. For this activity, I would have students creating objects using the pattern blocks. So for a symmetry activity, you could simply just get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and have students create objects with the pattern blocks to show that in symmetry, each sides are the same. So for example, butterflies are always a great object to use when teaching the lines of symmetry. So you could have the students create butterflies using the pattern blocks, and I'll show you quickly how I would do that. So they're simply just using pattern blocks to create objects to show that objects that have symmetry, they're going to be the both on each side. So these are just 3 standards and 3 activities that I would do with students using pattern blocks as a math manipulative to help them understand. Again, these are great because students are able to be really hands-on with them, and they help with a variety of different math subjects.